Afternoon again, and here we are at ECTV Live. This is Judge Tom Munley with my co-host David DeCosmo. And David, I do want to tell you that we have a very, very special guest here today, Sondra Myers, who has been a friend of mine for over 30 years. I'm sure she's been a friend of yours for a long time. Sondra is the director of the Schemel Forum, and I must say this, David. I've attended many events at the Schemel Forum at the De Naples Center at the University. First-class event, and we'll talk about that. And she's also one of the co-founders of Interdependence Day, which we'll discuss as we get into our show. And she's also an author. She's a multifaceted person, David, well-rounded. And we're in for a great half hour, and you're in for a great half hour. Everybody who's watching this show. So, David, I'll let you ask the first question.
Well, I think we're talking about this forum. First of all, we've got to find out what is this. So, if you would explain what it is, how it got started.
Okay, it's a program that started informally, and our friend, a friend of mine, a friend of yours, Harmer Brereton, was the one who started it. Because he was curious, you know, he is a Renaissance man, and not only medicine is his beat. He's very interested in classical literature. And he asked one of the professors at the university to teach a course on Dante's Divine Comedy, which she did for Harmer and a few of his friends, and they enjoyed it thoroughly. And then he asked Maury Myers, my husband, to teach something on the Federalist Papers. And a few more people came, and a few more people got enthusiastic about doing this. And I had been working in Washington at the time, so I knew all of this by hearsay on the weekend when I came home. But the interest increased, and then more courses were offered. And it got to the point where it was more than just a passing informal thing. It looked like it was becoming regular. And they were putting a basket out that people could give contributions, and we thought that wasn't a good idea, that as an academic institution, if we were going to do this informal education for adults, we should pay the professors, and that people should pay for them.
Obviously, there's time and effort involved in preparing this.
Of course, you know, because somebody may be teaching a course to students on the Divine Comedy, but this is extra time and extra preparation and so forth. So it seemed a fair thing to do. And as it became formalized, Harmer, who was a great fan of the late Father Schemel, who had helped him a lot, as Father Schemel helped people in their businesses, not just in their spiritual lives, but he was an organizational expert and helped a lot of people in the community, including Harmer in his medical practice. So he asked if we would name this new program the Schemel Forum, and that's how it got the name.
I do want to say, as Sondra knows, Harmer's one of my best friends, David. He's my doctor, but also he's my friend, and we're going to have him on here someday also, because he is a special person, just like Sondra is, and he's somebody that the people should get to know very well.
Well, Sondra, are they all separate courses, separate classes on unique subjects, if I may put it that way?
Well, they're not unique subjects. Some are traditional. I'll give you an example of what's coming up in the fall. We have 3 courses, and they generally run for 6 sessions. That's a good timing. People do the reading, and they're very participatory. We take pride in that. It's not just a lecture. It's a course. There's a lecture, but there's lots of participation. And these highly motivated adults of all ages are very interested in that part of it too, the discussion part. But for example, the 3 courses, one is on American philosophy, on transcendentalism, and they'll be reading Ralph Waldo Emerson, and American pragmatism, they'll be reading William James. And the third part is most interesting. It's on Native American thought, and they'll be reading one of the authors, one of the leaders of the Native American reader. One is going to be on, one course is going to be on Jane Austen and some other authors of her time. and the other one is going to be on Michelangelo. So they're not unique topics, but they're unique. They're very interesting topics.
And they're very specific, and I gather that it isn't as though one is repeated year after year after year.
No, we do different ones each time, and they're usually 6 sessions, and there are readings, and people there's no credit given, but they do their homework.
And once in a while, Sondra, you will have a speaker come in for one night. I've been to a couple of events there. I was there with Judge Jones, was there one night.
Oh, yeah.
And,
and we collaborate on things like that. We collaborate with the Lackawanna Bar, with the University of Pennsylvania, Northeastern Pennsylvania Alumni Group. We do collaborate. But the other regular thing that we do is a luncheon seminar series, and that became de facto a world affairs session. These sessions were deemed to be all on world affairs, and we came to see that that was a very good idea, something lacking in the community. And so now we're calling them world affair briefings, and we have 5 of those per semester.
Now that I'm affiliated or I'm aware of, because as it happens, I had the opportunity, along with some of the folks from ECTV, to attend one of those luncheon seminars very recently on the state of the media in our area. So we had representatives from the business community, the educational community, several representatives from ECTV were there. We had a gentleman representing WVIA TV that was there as well. Talked about just how things are going, what's happening, what's not happening in the area. So I can see where a session like that, you've got to have somebody sponsor, get behind that to organize it, and here's where the forum comes in.
Yeah. Well, the luncheons, we've had some extraordinary people. Some of them have Scranton roots. One of them is Alex Thier, who was the Afghanistan-Pakistan lead person at the the U.S. Institute of Peace. He's just been made part of the State Department, again with that hat. He's going to be 2nd or 3rd in command on Afghanistan-Pakistan.
I was there for that event, wonderful event.
Yeah. We have a woman from Afghanistan speaking in November. She has created an organization called Voices of Women in Afghanistan, a very perilous thing to do in that country. She's been named by Time magazine as one of the 100 most important people in the world, and she will be speaking here in November for the Schemel Forum.
I'm curious. I still, in my own mind, consider these offerings unique. I don't think they're the kinds of things you would routinely see offered as courses at various colleges, and again, as they change at the university from year to year. And so, consequently, I think one of the logical questions is, how are they being received? Are people readily signing up for these courses?
They are. We could handle more because we could grow the number of courses we give. But the luncheons have been growing from beginning 30 people, maybe 25 or 30, to 70 or 80, because it's something that you can do. You work in town. You can run up to the Brennan Hall. We usually do them in Brennan Hall, and just spend an hour there. Have your lunch, hear the lecture, join a discussion, and get back to work in no time flat.
And the lectures are so interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And I just want to say on the brochure, on the brochure for the Schemel Forum, it says for cultural enrichment and education in the community. And David, that's exactly what it is, the Schemel Forum. You get cultural enrichment, you learn a lot. I mean, I know myself that I never attended a course where you have to, like the 5 or 6 week course.
Yeah.
I never did that, but you know what, Sondra, I'm going to do that.
Oh, good. I think you'll love it. There's, I have a sort of subtitle to that for the enrichment of the community and from the joy of learning together. What you find is some people know each other before they come. Others don't know each other, but they create a kind of it creates a kind of bond, getting into this whole notion of discussing ideas together. It's a lot of fun.
All sorts of
It's
age
really a
levels
lot of
involved?
fun.
That is
Yes, yeah.
Would you have some of the regular university students that participate?
They don't usually, because they have enough of that through the day. Although for our luncheons, there's some professors who would like for some of their students to take part in them, and we do it. And I've got to say this too, in cooperation with the provost's office, when we get some of the speakers, most of them are extremely interesting, we can run a faculty seminar, sometimes a dinner, sometimes a breakfast, and the speakers are always willing to do that as well.
We get a few minutes to chat before
Here, David.
before things get started, and as we did that today, we mentioned this publication.
Yeah.
It's called The New Rwanda. How does this fit in with the forum?
Well, if you don't mind, before we leave the forum, because it's coming up so soon, I want to mention the tango concert that's coming.
Tango concert.
Yes, yeah.
What is a tango
well,
concert?
Classical musicians, two of them from the Philadelphia Orchestra, a cellist and a violinist. They were here before, and it was a huge hit. We did it as a cabaret concert, but they played. There are classical composers who have developed, mostly Latin, of course, developed classical music, that's tango music. And we do also have some very serious tango dancers in the Schemel Forum, and they asked if they could have a little dance floor and do some dancing too, and the musicians didn't object. But our next one is on a Monday night, a week from today, June 28th, at Brennan Hall. So I think there are some seats available, and we would like to have.
And David, about this book, now that we're
Yes,
getting into
But I'll
it,
get that. Yeah.
Sondra is the author of this book here, and
Aha.
Rwanda.
Aha. And does this tie in with your efforts at the forum at all?
No, it's a project that I came to the university with. The Schemel Forum happened when I got there, and something that was informal was formalized. But when I came to the university about 4 years ago, I had been working for many years on democracy-related projects, some of them in this country and some abroad. And I got into that because in the late 80s and early 90s, when things really started to change in the world, I got to see how difficult it is to become a citizen if you've been a subject all your life. You know, the things that you're asked to do as a citizen are just the opposite of what you are asked to do as a subject. You know, be quiet and obey. As a citizen, you're supposed to help to shape your society and speak up and talk about public issues. So because of that, I started on what became my first handbook. It's called The Democracy as a Discussion Handbook. And I don't write the whole thing. I use the works of other people, and I do some of the wraparound myself. But I bring together various essays and sometimes speeches that make the points that I'm trying to make. So but it's a matter of composition rather than authorship, I would say.
But it almost sounds as though you're doing the kind of research and gathering the kinds of information that you'd want to present at one of your forums.
Yeah.
For discussion.
Yeah.
Have you considered, because of your expertise now in that area, making that one of the subject matters of one of the forums?
I think it would be a great idea, and I might. And now my newest book is going to be, I've only barely started on it, but it's going to be, my second country-specific book is going to be on America. So I think maybe when I get that one done, maybe we'll have a discussion of that
You can
sort.
be sure we'll have a discussion. And David, I want to say something about Sondra. First of all, I'm real good friends with her husband, Maury Myers. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful man. But I'm going to mention something that I know Sondra would never mention, but I'm going to mention. Sondra was nominated for an Academy Award, David.
For an Academy
For
Award.
an Academy Award.
That's right.
And I knew she would never mention
Yeah.
it. She was nominated for, you watch TV, you watch the Academy Awards. She was nominated for an Academy Award. And I think you should, can you tell
You
us
got to
something?
explain
Sure.
that. Yeah, we can't let
Sure.
that hanging.
Yeah, well, that was in another part of my life. It was in the early 1980s. I had the occasion to meet a woman. She's a Sister of Mercy. Her name is Sister Carol Rittner, and she was on the board at Misericordia. And she, the then president of Misericordia, suggested that she see me because she had a project that she was interested in. And it was about the whole project. It included a conference, a film, and a book. It was about rescuers of Jews during the Holocaust.
Ah.
So she came to see me, and I was giving her some suggestions. And well, the bottom line is I became the program chairman for the conference, which we held at the State Department. It was amazing. And the co-executive producer of the film and the co-editor of the book. So the film was called The Courage to Care. It's a half-hour film, so it was nominated in the short documentary category.
What
It
an
was
honor.
in
Wow.
1986. And Maury escorted Sister Carol and me to the awards.
Right to the
And well, we almost won, but we didn't. And but it was very exciting. And the film has been shown a lot on public television. It's a half-hour show. My two greatest contributions to the film was insisting that it be short, that it be a half hour, and the title, The Courage to Care, was mine. But the rest of all the credit goes to the filmmaker and Sister Carol, the rest of the credit, I would say.
Well, I will say, though, we're sitting next to an Academy Award nominee, David. Not many people are nominated for an Academy Award.
No, that is quite an honor. And as Judge Munley suggested as we opened the program, you come to us actually wearing many hats.
Yeah.
And one of them is in connection with this Interdependence Day. And I think we want to get into this just a little bit to explain what it is, how it works, how it started. So what, in fact, is Interdependence Day?
Well, it's a day of commemoration which a colleague and I founded. It was launched in one block from Independence Hall at the American Philosophical Society on September 12th, 2003. In a sense, it was in part a response to 9/11. A recognition that we live in a very interdependent world, but we don't act as though we do, and we don't get along together. We don't recognize that, not just on the political level. Environmentalists have understood this for a longer time than most of us, so they have an Earth Day. And the Earth Day is to call attention to the fact that what we do here affects people in other parts of the world, and that we are responsible. Therefore, our responsibility goes way beyond community as we knew it before. We really are responsible for our actions and the way they affect people all over the world. So we created this day, and we celebrated here in Scranton on as close to September 12th as is convenient at the federal courthouse. But more than that, we ask educational, religious, cultural, and civic organizations to do things on their own sites.
What sorts of things are you
Well,
looking for, Sondra?
for example, one might choose to do an environmental discussion. One college might do something on internationalism. This year, the University of Scranton is going to sponsor a concert that's in honor of interdependence. We want people to do what they and their colleagues, whether it's students, teachers, think up. At civic clubs, we offer a speakers bureau, and we get people to talk about interdependence. Tomorrow, I'm going to Penn State I've been asked to speak to United Way of Pennsylvania on interdependence because they begin to see too that this is the principle maybe on which, United Way is a good example of interdependence that has been going on for years.
Because
and even
there are
before it.
multiple agencies that
Multiple
actually all
agencies,
draw from the
and
same
they all,
pool.
right. And it's a united way of doing things, and interdependence is kind of like that. Learning to respect others and understand and know them and respect them, because we live in a world where we are inescapably attached to each other, whether we like it or not. So we try to make a better shot at getting it right.
Following up on that, though, and Judge, I know you'll appreciate this because we've talked about it before. You have a St. Patrick's Day parade in the city of Scranton, and there's no room for people to even walk. You jam the streets with people that watch, people that participate. You have an Armed Forces Day parade, and fortunately it's been growing, but it's nowhere near the response. So is Independence Day the kind of thing that you can, well, I guess if I use a marketing term, is it something you can sell to the general public to get them more aware?
I think we can. I'm trying to do it through institutions because we don't have the mechanism and the infrastructure to go big. But one of the compelling things about it, and if on my list of books, I do have an interdependence handbook too. And in that there's a speech that John F. Kennedy made in 1962 on July 4th at Independence Hall. And in that speech he says it's time for us to have a declaration of interdependence. He noticed in the post-World War II period, in Europe, they were beginning to come together on certain issues, at least economic issues, and act together. And he spoke about that, seeing it as an important thing. He felt that independence had done its job. We were kind of as though it were a rite of passage. We've passed through that. He dared to say that. If I dared to say it, I would be considered a traitor, I suppose. But he dared to say it, that we're closing out on that period, and it's time for us to think about interdependence.
Getting
and
away
to
from
have a declaration of interdependence.
Getting away from them and us.
Exactly.
And bringing those factions
exactly.
together. And we see with the ethnic changes in our various communities here in northeastern Pennsylvania. That,
who's the we and who are the they? You know.
Exactly, exactly.
You know what, Sondra? You've led such an interesting life. You're a profound thinker. You're an educator. You're a philosopher. You're an author. Have you always been interested in this all your life? Because your life has many facets, and I read about you in the paper all the time. Besides knowing you as a close friend, have you always been interested in this kind of life?
Well, my father wrote something about me once. I guess I must have been, because he wrote a letter to my mother that was part of that was an exhibit that they did on Jews at the University of Scranton, Jews of Scranton. And so he said that I wanted to change the world in that letter. I don't know how old I was when he wrote that.
That's great.
But I guess he saw that in me.
But so, I could see that in you too, because and everything that she does, David. I mean, it has a purpose, and people like to listen to her, and actually people follow her leadership.
And the forum concept, I mean, in essence, that's what we have here on ECTV Live. Yeah. It's three of us. But as a forum, we're discussing these various things, and if you don't discuss them, how can you possibly know what the problems are that you're facing, or what the potential solutions to those problems may be?
Well, if you notice, I mentioned that my first handbook was called Democracy as a Discussion, and I didn't invent that. In fact, I thought that Havel had said that, but I had a Czech philosopher whose work I used, and he corrected me. Havel quoted the first president, the first democratic president of Czechoslovakia, Tomas Masaryk, who was president in the 30s or between the 20s, in the 20s, I think. He was the first democratic president of Czechoslovakia, and he was the one who said that. So it's a good thing to remember because you're doing this all the time.
You know what's I read a little bit about Havel, and you know what's amazing about him, David? Now here he is, the leader of a country. Not well, he used to be. He's not now, but like he'd leave his residence and he'd go out and sit around at a bar and have a drink. Of course, that's impossible in the United States.
Yeah.
Sure.
But he used to be able to do that in Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
He'd
And
be
he's a
conducting his
playwright.
own forums.
He's a player. He is a player. He's a
Yeah.
playwright, David. Yeah,
And
he
they're
is.
showing one of his plays in Philadelphia right now.
Is that right? I did not know that.
Well, of all these various endeavors that you're involved in, obviously the one that's coming up next week, a week from today,
Yes.
will be the tango.
Tango cabaret concert.
Yeah. So I think before we close out the program, Judge, we ought to talk about that again just a little bit. And is it set up as a cultural event, fundraising event, combination?
No, it's not a fundraising event. It's one of our events. We sometimes do 2 concerts a season, and they're part of it. It's $25 a person. But it's a cabaret. There's refreshments and wine and seating, very comfortable seating, and brilliant music, and dancing for those who
And
wish
I'm
to.
wondering if you find that those efforts are actually a good way to get people together and make them more aware of what is available to them through the forum.
Yeah, sure.
You know, that's why, David, so many things are happening in Scranton. Sondra, just so you know, David and I do this every week. We try to have somebody in the community who talks about our community. And this show is not only shown today, it's shown it's shown live today, but it's shown every Monday through Friday at 12 noon, and then it's shown every night at midnight. So this show's going to be on 10 times.
Wow.
And a lot of people see the shows, right,
Yeah.
David?
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of reaction. As a matter of fact, I think we ought to say that for those of you watching, you may have some ideas as to what you'd like to see on our program, and we welcome those suggestions, and you can send them via internet to electricitytv.org. We'd be very happy to have your comments on programs that we have shown, that we have aired, or ideas as to guests you might like to see. And we'll do our best to try to invite them and get them on the show. We'd love to have your comments, love to have your ideas, and certainly welcome your support at all times for ECTV. Will you be tangoing?
David, I won't be tangoing, but I'll get a full report from Maury Myers or Sondra Myers.
Okay.
But we're out of time now. But David, this has been so interesting. I think the world of Sondra, and I've always followed her career. Her career is just outstanding, and as a leader in the community, and what she's been doing for all of us in this area, it's just amazing. So, on behalf of our wonderful guest, Sondra Myers, and my great co-host, David DeCosmo. David and I have been working together for many, many years.
Long time.
On another station, and we're back together again. So this is Judge Tom Munley thanking you for watching ECTV Live, and we'll see you again next Monday.